Good evening, everyone. We'll start shortly.
Good evening, Mia. Good evening, everyone. Hey.
Good evening, Mr. Lawrence. Good evening, Mr. Herbert. Oh.
Okay, good evening. Why does one keep went off again? Okay, something's going on.
Your audio is back, Mr. Herbert. You're good. I heard you a few moments ago.
Wait a minute.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening, Yaakov. How are you?
Thank God we're back.
There was a moment where we were going to be in person. At least I think so.
We are in person, I think. Just this is the only meeting that's going to be on Zoom.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I understand, right? It's a one-time thing, Mia?
I think we'll receive an update on that shortly, but you may be correct. We may be returning to completely in person for everything.
I have to admit, some of the stuff that we're going to be reviewing tonight is probably best done with a shared screen. So the virtual format does kind of suit it, but you know, if we can do the same thing all together in the same room, that'd be great.
Hi, it's Felice. Who is chairing this meeting?
The chair for ULURP is Suki Chung. She should be in shortly.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Hi, Mia.
How are you? Hi, Nicola. Hey, Miss Boyd. Hey, Esteban. Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
The chair should be here momentarily and we'll be starting shortly. Thank you, everyone.
There should be a timekeeper for this meeting because I don't want to go to 10 o'clock.
Good evening, Ms. Boyd. Noted. Noted. Thank you so much. Welcome back, Ms. Boyd.
Is gone. So that, you know, Tuki like to talk too much.
Ms. Boyd, thank you.
Yeah, I'm saying it, and you know I'm gonna keep saying it. Get a timekeeper. Let's make sure we ain't heard at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Yes, we're going to keep time and we're going to be respectful of others and use the raise hand function and all of those lovely things. and have a great meeting.
Until we go in person, right?
And I gotta walk the dog at 9 o'clock. So yes, I don't want to go to 10 o'clock either.
Understood.
This poor dog. Hi, Miss Pat.
Miss Pat.
Just talking about you. I'm missing
Can
you
you-
already, and it ain't even happened yet.
Well,
Can you
that's
still can you still keep time even though you're not chair? Because we need you.
nope.
You know,
I knew it.
she ain't even here yet. It's 7:06. Come on, the first day. Ridiculous. Okay.
Don't start complaining already. Now.
But don't start being late already. Come on now, your first time. Be on time. Come on, people. Respect other people's time. Be on time. You're a chair. Be the example.
Well, we're gonna be meeting in person soon.
That would be nice. I'm looking forward to that.
Good evening, Mrs. Moses.
Hey,
How are you?
hanging in there.
Looking forward to
Good.
The issue is we don't have she has to do a vice chair and a recording secretary. So if she's late, then that person can, can start the meeting.
She has, is this a new policy? There's a mandatory vice chair?
That's always been.
Thank you. It's always been.
I think it's always been discretionary.
No,
No.
because at the end of the day, if somebody can't make it, somebody has to fill in.
It's an excellent policy to have. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
You think she forgot?
No. Just give me a moment and I'll be right back. Hold on, y'all.
Okay.
Hello, Pat. Hello, Alicia. Hi,
Hi.
Tara. Oh,
Hi.
hi. Nicola. Epstein.
Oh, Felice, hello.
Yeah, hi.
I couldn't tell
Maxine.
who's talking.
Michael.
Hi, Miss Pat.
Hey, how you doing?
Just to be clear,
Okay.
although it's a good idea, I just read the bylaws. The language is clear. It's discretionary. May elect. It's not mandatory.
Right. We've typically had one for ULURP.
Good thing. It's a good thing to have, but it's not mandatory. It's discretionary.
Okay, you changed your name. I was like, Chevy? Is that? I was like, okay, it looks like Yakov. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to ULURP.
Thank you. I was on ULURP for 2 years. There used to be I think there was at one point in the last 10 years, the board had a policy that every chair of every committee was automatically on ULURP. I think
Yeah.
it was maybe in 2016 or something, in 2017. So I was in ULURP for 2 years during that period, during that era. Oh, Suki's here.
Hey, everybody. My apologies for being late. I had it in my mind that it was a Tuesday, but happy to see you all here.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not alone.
Okay, so we'll start off with committee introductions, the community board members and the resident committee members. My name is Suki Cheong. I'm the chair for this year. I'm a community board member. I've been a community board 9 member. This is my 3rd year. And prior to that, I was a resident committee member of the land use committee member for about 3 or 4 years. And I got started with this as an activist in the community. We were facing a big development across the street from me. It was a huge tower, like bigger than anything anybody had ever seen before. And nobody really understood why this was happening. And people recommended I go to the community board, and we started looking into zoning issues. And it really was just the tip of the iceberg. There was, we found out after that there were a lot of zoning issues in the community. So that's how I got started. I'm also going to ask everybody, because it has been raised as an issue at previous meetings last year, and I think it's important for us all to be able to work together and to trust each other, and for the public to have confidence in us, to disclose if you currently have any personal, professional, business interests in terms of land use applications that are before the city currently. And also, obviously, prior to any vote, we would ask that you disclose that and appropriately recuse yourself if that's appropriate. And that also applies, if you're a member of a nonprofit association, whatever, a block association, whatever, that has a zoning application before the city. So I do not at the moment. I will say I'm a homeowner in the neighborhood. I've owned my home for about 11 years now. I live on Fenimore Street. If any of the rest of you want to say what part of the neighborhood you live in, that would be nice too, just because, again, that's a question that's been asked since this is land use. So I will pass it on to the next person. I guess we'll otherwise go alphabetically. So that would be Mr. Berman, Yakov Berman.
Hi, you want me to make a disclaimer?
No, just tell us your name, a little bit about your time on the board, why you're interested in land use, and the whole thing about if you have any land use interests before the city.
So I'm going to be very short. I'm Yakov Bierman. I have a drug prevention program, Operation Survival, in the neighborhood. I also do political relations with Chabad, which is an international Jewish movement. I also have the Jewish Future Alliance, which is a nonprofit, which we do advocacy for people in the community, for voter advocacy or other types of people that are not, advocating for different rights of different groups. I have there's no application for the board that I have any personal or business interest in now. And I was on ULURP for 2 years, I believe, at some point during my 10 years on the board. And I look forward to working with everybody once again.
Thank you. I guess the next person would be Nicola Cox, who is a...
Good evening. I'm Nicola Cox. I'm a resident member of the ULURP committee. I've been on the committee, I think, since about 2017, 2018. And I'm a homeowner on Ludlam Place, which is right off of near Empire Boulevard, across from Ebbets Field, in that vicinity. I am the president of the Block Association in the neighborhood and have been involved with FLAC, MTOP, and other community groups that are trying to protect the neighborhood from out of context rezoning. All for me.
Okay, thank you. John Craver.
Hi, good evening all. I've been a resident member of the ULURP committee, CB9 for, I think this is year 4 for me. I live on Midwood at Nostrand, and I am a homeowner down here. And yeah, I have no business before the city at all, any application or anything like that. So I am an architect by profession, training, and working as a construction manager currently.
Hey, thank you. Next, I think is Esteban Huron.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Esteban Huron. I have been on the ULURP committee. I just looked, I think it's my 9th year, which is a long time. I live on Franklin and Carroll, right across the street from the development that's going up on either side of Tivoli, and got into this work through my work through the Crown Heights Tenant Union. Once we realized that that displacement was happening more than just from landlords, that it was also coming from developers, and that it was all tied together. So I do go before the city council for lobbying on various tenant issues, and generally the same as Nicola, got involved in this so that we could prevent displacement of the community. So that's the only disclosure that I have. So yeah, excited to work with you all again.
But you guys aren't doing any land use applications, right?
No, we just
Okay.
oppose them.
Okay. Okay, let me see who's next. Pat Moses. Miss Moses.
Good evening. I am the former chair of the ULURP, I think for the past 3 years. So, and I've been on the board about 6 years. So hopefully we can.
More than that, Pat.
It's been more than that? Really?
About a decade.
Huh?
9 years, between 9 and 10.
At least.
Really? Well, I've
Really?
lost some years, so, but anyhow. So we now have a new chair, and so we'll move forward with that.
I look forward to working with all of you, and I thank Miss Moses for all of her wonderful guidance in the past years. Okay, so I think the last person is John Wolfling.
Thank you. I will try to be brief. I am an architect. I work at Datner Architects. We're a firm that does a wide variety of work. So there may be instances where I have either colleagues who are presenting work to this community board, which of course I would recuse myself from any sort of votes. That would be that there might even be a perception of me being biased in that situation. Our clients are a variety of not-for-profits and for-profit developers. We work with Phipps Houses, one of the largest and most successful not-for-profit housing, affordable housing providers in the city. Mutual Housing of New York, another grassroots not-for-profit that works out in East New York. Cypress Hills Local Development Corporation, another organization called ICL, Institute for Community Living. They provide supportive housing for populations that need it. But just to, full disclosure, I also work for-profit developers like Douglaston, which I know they're doing the vital Brooklyn Kingsborough psychiatric sites, and Monadnock that's doing Utica Crescent, and Kingsbrook Estates. Kingsbrook Estates is actually my project. So if that comes to this board for any sort of vote or discretionary action, I would of course recuse myself. I have a couple not-for-profits that's boards. I've just newly been appointed to the Campaign Against Hunger, a great not-for-profit that provides food and local produce to all over Brooklyn. They're based in Bed-Stuy, so they're a great organization. I'm really honored to be on their board now. So that's probably enough to give you a sense of who I am. But I come from a place where I want to help promote affordable housing. I think we need to have more affordable housing in our city, and I think that's, you know, there's choices that we have to make as a community to allow that to happen. So enough said for now.
Okay, thank you so much, John. And so just to recap, you do not have any current land use applications before the city in your
No, in
professional-
the city, absolutely, but not in our community.
Just because we're going to be discussing citywide text amendments.
So there's, if you want me to, I can get back to you with a list. There's one in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. There's another project in Queens that's just doing a fresh program. I'll get back to you with a comprehensive list just so you can see where my interests are.
He just
Thank
said
you so much.
side of Brooklyn, that is an application's pending.
Pardon me?
So the next section that we're going to move on to is old business and committee updates. I apologize, by the way, you know, if I'm moving through things pretty fast. I have been accused of holding excessively long meetings in the past, so we're going to try to keep it to 9:30 tonight.
The public people who have attended don't matter. They don't need to be introduced. So we don't matter.
Okay, well, if you guys would, I would love to have you guys introduce yourselves. Please keep it to 2 minutes, but just remember, you know, the more time we do on this, the less time we're going to have on the substantive discussion. But yeah, please go ahead, introduce yourselves.
Well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Alicia Boyd. I'm a community resident. I'm a Brooklyn native, lived here all my life. And I am part of a community group called MTOP, the Movement to Protect the People, and FLAC, Flower Lovers Against Corruption. Thank you.
Good evening, community. Yes, this is a community board, and I would think that the community is important. And you know what, board members, community, transparency leads to trust. As long as we're disclosing, and that went on and on like Erica Badu, please, can we get some names on these phone numbers? That'd be nice. That's cool. And again, transparency means trust. My name is Maxine Barnes. I'm President Emeritus of the 200 Sterling Street Block Association. I'm a homeowner. I've been a homeowner, oh my God, what is it now? 40 years in the neighborhood. I'm a part of MTOP as well as FLAC. I've been on the community, engaged with the community for, I guess, what now, 10, 12 years. I've participated, and as long as God gives me life, I will speak up for my community. Again, I'd like to remind everybody, this is a community board. Thank you all for listening. Have a good year.
Thank you so much,
A
Maxine.
productive year.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the community who wants to introduce themselves?
I will.
Tara?
I think Felice or somebody was talking already.
You want me to start?
Felice?
Okay, my name is
Sure.
Felice Robertson. I've been on the community board for now 2 years. I've been attending the community meetings for about 8 or 9 years. My parents have been, I occupy my parents' apartment, who has been here since 1970. I am Vice President of WABA, Washington Avenue Block Association. I live on Washington, which is across the street from Botanical Gardens, who I am in line with Alicia and the others in protecting this garden vehemently. I'm also involved with the union. I am also Secretary of Crown Heights Community Council. And I've been elected as Vice Chair in Transportation. I think that covers it. Thank you. Oh, and yes, I am also involved with the 71st Precinct Community Council. Thank you.
Hi. Oops.
Go ahead, sorry.
My name's Teresa Westerdahl, aka Tara. I live in Crown Heights near Ebbetsfield. I am have a keen interest in land use. I'm a community board 9 member, and I am serving on the Environmental Protection Committee. As first a community resident, and now as a board member. This will be my 3rd year on that committee. And I'm just very interested in the land use issues that we're having. You know, and I'm involved with flower lovers and top people in my neighborhood, especially the Sullivan Ludlam Stoddard Neighborhood Association. So, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Celia, and this is my husband, Renee. And I'm a longtime member of this community for about over 50 years anyway. I grew up in this community. So, and we were interested in the community board. My experience is not with community boards per se. Most of my experience has been on the citywide councils for education. So I was a member of the citywide council for on high schools for 4 years. And I was also a member for 6 years on the citywide council for District 75, which deals with children with IEPs and children with disabilities and so on. So we're just glad to be here and learn a little bit more about land use issues.
Hello, everyone.
Thank
My wife already introduced me. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to introduce themselves? Any board members?
I'm not a
Yes,
board member. I'll go ahead if it's okay. My name is Michael Hollings.
Sure.
My name is Michael Hollingsworth. I'm a lifelong resident of Crown Heights. I've been coming to ULURP meetings just a member of the public since I think 2017. And yeah, I come to these meetings because I'm a concerned citizen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Hi.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah and my husband, Barry James. We have just started attending the community board meetings. We've lived in Crown Heights for over 40 years. Myself and Barry lived here on Washington Avenue across from the Botanic Gardens for the last over 20 years. And I am interested particularly in the land use. I've only recently became informed about that type of meeting, and I'm curious to find out what's going on. I am also interested in protecting the community because we are part of this community, especially in what was going on. And one gentleman mentioned affordable housing. I am interested in seeing that less of the affordable housing gets eroded or sold off. It's New York City affordable housing, rent stabilized building in particular. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi, Rod Herbert. I'll just make it quick. Rod Herbert, longtime resident in the community for 57 years. Recently joined the board. I am with the Environmental Protection Board, and I'm a member of, and I'm glad to be here.
Hey, thank you. And please raise your hand if you want to speak.
Will do.
Jay?
Sure. My name is Jay Sorid. I'm a former member of the CB9 land use, and I used to be a property owner back in 2015 and 16, and I came back to the board or attending different meetings because Suki was kind enough to send me an email saying that there's a project that's going up at 777 Rutland. So that's what caused me to come back. I don't have any conflict of interest issues. I have no business in the district or land use. For those of you, my profession is I happen to do law nothing that deals with anything before the board here in Brooklyn. I do this basically for the love of the game, for fun, because I have an interest in the public interest, because I have friends in the neighborhood, and I also have an interest in issues which could affect the Jewish community. I am a member of the Kingsborough shul here in town, so I maintain connections there. But anything that affects East Flatbush is something that I'm interested in. And I will say that I am definitely interested in there being affordable housing being built, but not if it comes at the expense of the existing residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are approaching 7:30 now. If there are any other community board members here, can you raise your hands to identify yourselves? Okay, I do see a couple of other board members, but that's fine. It's just usually something that the public wants to know who's a board member and who's not. Vanessa Raptopoulos, do you want to say a couple words about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am on the board on the Economic Development Committee, and I am a business owner in the neighborhood and just here to listen.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other board members who wish to identify themselves? But I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't notice Mia Hilton, who has shepherded us through many, many late nights. So thank you, Mia, for that. Mia is one of our community board staff, and she helps us to host our meetings. Okay, I am, just in the interest of time, I'm going to ask that any other community members who are present, if and when you speak, you can start by briefly introducing yourself. I'm also going to ask that people limit their comments to 2 minutes. And of course, you know, usual rules of order apply. Don't interrupt other people. Raise your hand if you want to be noticed. Don't make derogatory comments or personal attacks. And just in order to keep things moving along, if you have the same thing to say as the last 3 people, it's, you know, we probably don't need to all say it. Okay, so we'll start with old business and committee member updates. The first item of old business is the City of Yes for carbon neutrality. That was voted on by the City Planning Commission on September the 11th. It did pass. There was one commissioner who voted no. He was specifically very concerned about the battery storage issue, which we had discussed. There were concerns raised by other other planning commission members. And I think just in general, at the last public hearing we had for the economic opportunity, there are a lot of community boards who are wondering how their comments were taken into account. You know, we as a board put a lot of time into this. And supposedly there is a final report out from city planning that does reflect all of those comments. So we'll take a look at that and see what that has to say. But the next step is this goes into to a vote by the city council.
Hearing?
Yes, the city council will have a public hearing on this issue. I'll ask Mia to send out that date to all of you. So, you know, thank you all for all of your comments and all of the work that you put into this. It is important. I think that a number of the commissioners were hearing what we said. You know, of course, we are one of 59 community boards. The second issue I want to update you guys on is 975 Nostrand Avenue. Dante received a letter over the summer to ask if we wanted to waive our review period on the fresh application, because they're expecting that to be referred by the City Planning Commission to the Community Board shortly. It hasn't been yet, as far as I know, but they're expecting that to happen shortly. And after that, we will have 45 days to comment on the application. So I would urge you all to take a look at the updated documents in the zoning application portal. I'm actually going to, if I can, share my screen. This is not what I want to share. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, can everybody see the 975 Nostrand fresh application?
Yes, we see it. We see.
So I would urge you all to take a look at the latest filed land use application packages. There are quite a few documents that they have had to file with the Department of City Planning. As you all know from the past discussion that we had with this applicant for the fresh zoning application, which is essentially they're allowed to ask for up to 14 extra feet in exchange for doing the fresh food supermarket. In this case, they're bringing back the associated that was there before. There are several criteria they have to meet. They have to see whether or not there are other supermarkets in the area. They do a saturation analysis, but they also look at things like whether there is an undue impact on light and air for the for the neighbors. They also look at whether that extra 14 feet is needed to make the supermarket feasible. So I would urge you all to take a look at the documents and see if you think that they've met the criteria. But also keep in mind that this fresh amendment, it's a kind of voluntary zoning incentive. It's not mandatory. They're not, we can say you can deny the fresh upzoning, but you can't make them put the supermarket there. So we will let you know as soon as it is referred.
Sue, can I make
John?
one comment?
Yes.
Or at least one, I think, important note, which is the developer, when they put this fresh store in there, when they make the commitment to have the fresh store there, they have to provide it. There is a restrictive declaration that goes on their certificate of occupancy that says that they basically can't use the additional floor area that they get if they don't have the grocery store in place. So it's a very strict zoning mechanism.
No, that's understood, John. It's when I said it's voluntary, what I meant is that we as a community cannot force them to build, right? To build the supermarket unless they agree to it. And so there's a zoning benefit in exchange for that if they voluntarily agree to do it. Jakob.
Thank you so much. So one question and one comment. I'll start with the comment. Just if I'm not I mean, this is the supermarket where there was a lot of controversy over when they were going to close down. I think a bunch of the elected, there were, there was a press conference and a press release and some kind of deal where they agreed to put back to Associated. Is this the supermarket we're talking about?
Yes.
Right. So there's a lot. Okay. So that's an important to note that there was a lot of, I would say, community support and elected officials that were very outspoken of the need of the supermarket there. What I don't fully understand is in the process, this also goes before the city council. This is something that the land use committee decides themselves. It does not go before the city council, right? So what level of inputs, as opposed, I mean, typically when we have an application before us, our local council member or others look to see how, look how the board voted, what the board's input is on the application. What level of, I mean, how seriously does the committee take our perspective and our position? And what is the process? I mean, this is if they fit the criteria, is it an automatic approval, or is this something really where the community has an opportunity to oppose? If they qualify, does that mean they're approved, or is there a lot of discretion on the land use committee to approve or disapprove? I mean, the city committee.
So it's for the city planning commission to decide.
Right.
It's a special permit, but we do have the right to comment under this process.
Right, but the planning commission, technically, if they fit their criteria, it's an automatic approval, or it's really discretionary?
No,
it's not. It's not an automatic approval. I mean, it's a special permit, so it's not entirely political the way a zoning decision might be, but we do have the right to comment. And so, our influence is the same as it is in any land use situation where we have the right to comment and we're part of the process and people look to us, but we're not the ones who vote on this.
But I think what the point I'm trying to make is, and I think you've clarified, is that when a typical land use application, community, how it's going to affect communities is I think it's taken into account a lot more. In this case, if they fit their criteria, I think we have less of a voice and less of a say. The only reason why it's relevant is how much time and how much energy we should put into it. If they fit the criteria, I mean, is there a history of them not approving applications that fit the criteria? I guess. Let me rephrase that question.
That's a good question. I can look into that. I do not know. Fresh is a relatively recent thing. But I think it's as with all land use things at the community board, it's what we make of it, right? We never have.
We all have time. I wonder how many, if we're going to invest time and energy, we want to make sure there's.
That depends on depends on you guys and the community. How important is this to you?
No, both of you got it wrong. This is an application that goes before the city planning commissioner. And that is the person who approves the application. This is just a notification. All they're doing is notifying us of this. As long as they follow all of the rules and regulations underneath the Fresh program, they will be approved by the city planning commissioner, the head of the commission. It doesn't even go before the planning commission itself. This is just all they're doing is notifying us. We don't have a
No, we actually do have a comment period. That was what Dante said. And so, if you guys don't have any comments, that's entirely up to you.
And I just wanted to state that it was MTOP and the community that fought very hard for the Associated to come back. It wasn't the politicians. It was us demonstrating, going up to Connecticut, going to Park Avenue, demonstrating against the developers that allowed this Associated to come back into our community. So let's just give points to the people who actually did the work. And that's some of the
definitely. Thank you,
Alicia. Suki, if I could weigh in,
John, yes,
I'm going to agree with much of what Alicia just said. it is a chair certification. So, but I think there's a role that the community board does play, as I think Alicia has pointed out, that there is some advocacy for local issues that can be weighed in on by this community board. So, but it is a chair certification. It doesn't go to the city council, but there is a role that we have to play.
Okay, Pat, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to update. It came in front of us, I believe, in February of this year. It is not something that, okay, what is supposed to happen at this point is that the supermarket that everybody was like protesting for is going to be there, along with 327 new apartment units. So basically, the fresh, it came before us in a funny kind of way, because they don't really need our approval, but they have a square unit. I mean, they have like square feet or how many feet they could put the fresh program in. So that's what came in front of us. At that point, it was not so much of a ULURP issue. It was more of a housing issue when we talked about the 327 new apartments that we understand were they going to be affordable or whatever. So we kind of like shot it over to housing. So it wasn't an issue, as far as I know, that the ULURP had. We just discussed it. They came in front of us. And I think it was it Hudson? Do you remember, Alicia? I think it was Hudson Street. They came in front of us. So it wasn't an issue that we really were getting involved in. It's going to happen.
Thank
But
you.
I think the main objective was
Jay?
the community wanted to make sure that the supermarket was there. And they, as far as I know, it's supposed to go forward as such.
Okay, thank you. Jay?
Yeah, just to add on, the housing committee never saw this issue, never came to the issue, never came to the housing committee or anything like this. It just came to the land use committee. And just to add on, if people want to see each of the steps that it goes according to, it's on the zoning application with New York City, the ZAP, New York City zoning application. And it says specifically community board review session, pre-hearing, post-referral, post-hearing follow-up, city planning commission vote, approval to necessary agency. So it may be helpful perhaps in the future if we can have a web chat. And this way, if we could have web chat, somebody could put the link in there and then everyone could see that particular link and then just follow it. And there may be an issue where if we want to give support to this, and you know, I know Alicia was in the papers because she was one of the ones who advocated for it. If we want to give support to it, maybe the community board could either give support with a letter also, or somebody could appear at the city planning commission when they do their hearings, which is part of this process, and say we're for it, etc. Thank you.
Anybody else? Sarah? Sarah, you're on mute. Sarah, you have to unmute yourself. Mia, can you help her?
Okay.
Yes,
So
I requested.
yeah, I did it. So I'm not part of the committee, but I do live in Crown Heights. I was born here. I live here. I work here. And I've sat on a few meetings, and based on, like, you know, from what I'm reading and seeing, I just have one comment. I feel like from my experience, from what I'm seeing is that, okay, we'll give you this, but then there's going to be a bigger damage. 300 apartments to get the supermarket back is honestly, it's not, the damage is more than the gain. Okay, I live right there in Montgomery between Brooklyn and New York, and that's already Nose Street is already very, very congested. How are you replacing one floor associated with 300 more apartments on top of that? And this is without taking into account anything else that's being built around the area.
I think
the damage is far worse than what the community wants.
I think the apartments are as of right, no?
I think you need to understand the fresh
Please
program.
raise your hands if you want to be recognized.
I think people just need to understand what the fresh.
Alicia, Okay.
No, we do. People, there was a big, a big thing that people did want the supermarket, and they said it's a food desert, and to go all the way to the Western beef was far and this and that. Fine, that's taken into account, and we thank you for that. But the 327 apartments coming, what used to be for something one floor, is not a normal proportion.
Well, let's just understand what the FRESH program is. The FRESH program was introduced in 2009, in which community boards advocated that if someone came in and built development and put in a supermarket, they would automatically be entitled to about 14 apartments. That's it. It wasn't 300, it's only about 14. They allowed an additional 15 feet of floor space. That was it. This was a program citywide. If you are a developer and you're in a district that accepted that program and you provided the supermarket and you did the size of the supermarket that's required, you automatically got the 14 additional apartments. It had nothing to do with what type of supermarket came in. That was completely separate. We negotiated for the supermarket to come back in, because a lot of the times when developers come into the community, they do more higher end supermarkets when they put those FRESH programs in. And so we just negotiate. We did not negotiate the supermarket for these additional apartments. What we negotiate is just for the developer to say, yes, the supermarket that we're going to choose is going to be the associated, so that we could try to keep the prices down reasonably and affordable to the existing community. However, the FRESH program has been in our community since 2009, and any supermarket, any developer who creates a supermarket can apply for that program. And as long as they do the specs, as long as they provide the right amount of measurements, they are entitled to the additional 14 apartments, not 300. It's about 14 apartments, depending upon your FAR, but the average that I've seen is about 14 additional apartments.
Alicia, thank you. I have to call on someone else now. John?
Wait, so how did we get to the total number of apartments that we have now?
Because that's as of right.
It's as of right. There is no ULURP application for the housing component at all.
Right.
Nothing to do with us.
Right.
They came to the ULURP committee last February, I believe, you're right, basically as a courtesy to present their project, and that is it.
They are entitled.
Alicia, please raise your hand. I need to recognize someone else. Maxine?
Let me unmute myself. Yes, Sarah, the community, MTOP, myself, Flack, we did not advocate for the 327 apartments. As it was just said, my hand was already up. That was as of right. They were going to do that anyway. That is not what we bought into at all. Understand that. But
No. I'm not accusing anyone. No.
Okay,
I'm
please.
just
No, we can't have this cross.
To make
Guys,
it clear that
we
we
can't have
only
this crosstalk.
advocated for a supermarket under the FRESH program because they were going to do the 327 anyway. Okay, it's a sign of insanity to think that the community is going to expect something different. Okay, they do the same thing over and over and over. We're supposed to expect something different. The same thing with the COI. Okay, they are trying to build towers again. They're coming back and try to shadow the garden. That's all, Sarah. I just want you to understand, we did not advocate for that. We do not want them either. Affordable never happened. We wanted the supermarket. Okay, got it?
I hear you.
All right,
I hear you. I hear
all right.
Nicola?
Right. I'm not sure if Sarah understands when we say as of right. So basically, depending on the zoning for that lot, and I believe that lot is probably R7, they can go up to a certain height. And so they maximize the height allowed for the lot of land that they're building upon, which is an entire city block, basically. So that's why they're able to go that high and create the 300 plus units. Okay, I agree with you. I wouldn't want it in the neighborhood. I'm not looking forward to all of those units in the neighborhood myself.
Thank you. Tara?
Yep. Hi. I live very close to this development, and I would prefer there to be like all affordable in that spot. And I'm just wondering, I've never seen Sarah in a meeting before. What is your concern?
No, I
Were
have
you-
no concern about the supermarket. My concern was about the amount of apartments coming. But if this is the wrong committee and this has nothing to do with it, I'm just sitting here listening because I live close by a block away. That's it.
Well, it's
Not-
okay. I just wonder why, I know why I don't want such a huge
You want to know
development.
why I don't want the apartments?
Yes.
First of all, I live, like I said, a block away. There's the parking, the density of the amount of people. I mean, that alone is a big enough reason. I'm not sure, it's not like one person is gonna live in every apartment. We're talking at minimum 200 people. I mean, 2 people per apartment. So you're talking about 600 additional people. Nostrand Avenue, I drive there every day. You know what's going on there between 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock? And that's with the city bus also, with the bus lane.
Yeah, and they're gonna put another bus lane there too.
Thank
They're
you,
gonna bring.
Sarah. You are so right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I just really wanted to hear Sarah out.
Great, thank
you
you,
know,
Tara.
since we're neighbors.
Whose iPhone?
And like I said, I mean, I even for me as someone who is working like legitimately and everything, affordable, you look at the amount that they're asking, you're asking at basic $2,200 for a studio. That's not, a person that wants to pay that price, they could go live anywhere else. That's not specifically affordable.
Okay, thank
So-
you, Tara and Sarah. Whose iPhone?
Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
Hello.
Michelle.
Hi, how are you? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can I be heard? Hi, how are you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm working, so I was actually not visible, but I just wanted to come in and, make a mention. I second Sarah's concerns. I too am a lifelong resident of East Flatbush, actually on 49th Street on the Lenox Road side. And so I think that there's not too much of a mention when they're starting all these multiple developments. This is one of the many developments. This influx of traffic, how is it impacting the longtime residents that have been living in the area? What about our sunlight as these high-rise buildings are being built all the way up? There's no parking. There's enough already of a crowd, as I live near to the Utica Avenue and Church Avenues that are very busy main roads. And so there's not enough mention being made about what is the impact on the residents. Yes, we're bringing all of these businesses and this high influx of traffic. There's already a big problem with parking in our areas. And so is this a means to push all of the residents out? Because I certainly don't see how this is going to improve our quality of life.
Thank you, Michelle. Pat Moses and then Cheryl Bernard.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I think we should stick to ULURP issues. Again, I'm not the chair, but this is not at this point a ULURP issue. And if you don't understand as of right, that means they had the right to build it without the supermarket. So at the end of the day, this is not a ULURP issue at this point. It is a housing issue. And I just want to make a comment. Everybody talks about they want affordable housing, but not in my neighborhood. So if they supposed to build, they were supposed to have an agreement to also build 100 affordable units. So at the end of the day, everybody wants stuff, but not in my backyard. But I would like to just stick to the ULURP issues if you don't mind, because this is not a ULURP issue.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Cheryl?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I don't know what a ULURP issue is. I'm learning what right to, what was it called?
As of
right.
As of right. So you're
Developer could build
saying,
without permission.
so who does the developer answer to? So once, as in this case, 975 Nostrand. So because they bought the lot, and the zoning issue allows them to have that space, they're allowed to go up because of the zoning issue? So they can go as high as they want to go? Is this correct?
As high as the zoning will allow them to go, yes.
Okay, so who controls the zoning?
The zoning resolution and the zoning map control the zoning that is set through the ULURP process, which we're the first step in the ULURP process. Subsequently, it goes to the City Planning Commission, whose members are appointed by our various citywide elected officials, and then it's voted on by the City Council. So it's you and it's your elected officials.
So at what point?
But that's for rezoning, Suki, where the as of right is based on the existing
As of
zone.
right is based on the existing zoning map, but the existing zoning map was obviously created at some point by our elected officials and their representatives.
But we're talking, right, so we're dealing with what's happening now, what's the existing zone, because that's what we're dealing with on Nostrand Avenue. And that zoning was set, what, back in the 60s?
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
Area
So
has not
that's
been
what we're
redone
talking
since
about.
1961.
May I finish my next question if it's?
Correct.
Yes, Cheryl,
So at
please.
what point does anyone consult the community that this will affect? At what point does the community have a say-so in the matter? At what point does anyone not care what's going on with the people that have been there for years and will be negatively affected by this response? There's no way possible that they can think you're going to put up 320 something units and no parking for. At what point do our elected officials care? And at what point does our community board support us? How is it that we're paying taxes? No one's going to want to buy our homes if we ever sell it because our values will be devalued. Our values will go down tremendously. Where is it that we have someone that cares what we say and what we think?
So you came to the right place for that, Cheryl. This is the place where the community has a voice in the zoning throughout our community. And this kind of makes a perfect segue into the next segment, which is general community concerns. Some of those were raised already, but does anyone else have any general concerns not related to 962-72 Franklin Avenue or City of Yes for any other community concerns about land use?
Yeah, you had sent around a notice regarding the Franklin Avenue rezoning application.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that right next. If there are no other concerns, we'll talk about that.
My hand is raised if I may.
Cheryl.
I don't know if this is the place, the time. I don't know. I'm just getting involved because of what's coming in my neighborhood. They're bringing up something called Vital Brooklyn, which I'm calling non-Vital Brooklyn, which Mia is very well aware of what I'm talking about. In our area alone, within 5 blocks of where I live, 5 blocks, within 5 blocks, 11 apartment buildings are going up with little to non-existing parking. 11 apartment buildings. And in addition to this, a row of houses on a street that is so narrow that if you come right now or during the day, every car is parked on the sidewalk. At what point do they care about us constituents that are living here that already deal with homelessness and drug use, our cars being broken into, our homes being defecated on and broken into, safety, rape? There was a attempted rape the other day. It was on the news. At what point does people care? Like, how can our voices be heard? And I'm understanding everyone that's saying yes to this project, this Vital Brooklyn, is not going to be affected by this. What can we do about this? Can we be heard? Because this is absolutely absurd. And how can the person that lives across the street from where this is going to happen not know about it? No one knew. I knocked on every door from Winthrop Street to Troy on the other side of Clarkson. Them out of the probably 60, 70, 80, 90 doors that I knocked on, 5 people may have heard what they think about what's going on. What's going on? I don't know where I have to start, but I'm ready. I'm bringing awareness to everybody in our community about what's going on. But
Well,
this
thank
is
you, Cheryl,
absurd.
because
11 apartment buildings. I hear people complain about 1. We have 11 within 5 blocks. Somebody has to say this is crazy at some point.
Well, thank you, Cheryl, for your outreach. And please always feel free to bring community members to the ULURP meetings. This is what we're here for. John Craver.
Mia, not Mia.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to, I guess, repeat what Pat Moses spoke about. The past 10 minutes or so of conversation has been regarding non-ULURP matters. I think this is a ULURP committee. If you have issues with your general community and development that you're not pleased with, speak to your electeds. Those are the people who have real power. We have tiny bit of power, okay? Everybody else, if you have a problem with Vital Brooklyn, talk to your state and local representatives. It's a state property. It does not fall under ULURP in 1 iota. We have no influence at all, other than being a voice. That's all we can do. We have no power to approve or deny anything that happens at Vital Brooklyn. Okay? So if you have safety issues, talk to your precinct. If you have issues regarding again, development that you're not happy with, talk to your electeds, whether state or city council. That's all.
I think
So
it's actually
Vital,
part of the
if I can just say, Vital Brooklyn is a state project, and the state is allowed to override city zoning, and so that's part of what's going on here, why it's not part of the ULURP process, and why they were able to change the existing zoning in some places. However, I would say that as a land use committee, I think it's important for us to hear and be aware of significant land use changes taking place in our community, because it affects how we're going to plan. We did actually hold hearings on this a year ago. There were people who came, I think, from Clarkson Avenue. They didn't speak at the time. The state also held general project plan hearings. There were a number of people who came to that. But yeah, so I agree that this is not going to be something that we're going to be voting on at the present time, but it's important for us to be aware of. So who's next? Jay, you've had your hand up.
Sure. Did you hear me, Suki?
Yes.
Did you hear me? Great. So I just wanted to expand upon Pat Moses's opinion that this is only a ULURP committee, which is where last year when I tried to bring up this issue, that's what Ms. Moses said as the chair. I wanted to strongly disagree with that. This is a ULURP/land use committee. It's both. And it's very easy for people who live on the other side of town in PLG to basically say, we don't need to deal with this, okay? The makeup of the committee is the problem. There's nobody on the land use/ULURP committee who lives in East Flatbush, okay? So I think in terms of geographic representation, you have East Flatbush that is being tremendously compromised, yet there's not one person on the land use/ULURP committee that could open up their mouth and say, I object to this, I want to make a motion, here's a second. And I would ask you, Suki, to start putting on more residents on this committee. Like in 2015, we had a lot more residents on the land use committee then. More residents were from East Flatbush. There's completely zero representation. We blew a tremendous amount of comment periods. No comment period on 681 Clarkson. There was an EIS. No comments on that, okay? And that's because it's very easy.
Yeah, I actually sent in comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Yakov. This community board did not send in this community board did not send in any comments from the community board or from the land use committee. And I'd like more people to be on it, and people should know the process. The reason why it's important that the land use committee and this community board can say something is that there is a New York State Empire State Development. You have to understand the process. There's a board of directors. The board of directors with their general plan is going to vote on this. And when the board of directors votes on this, they listen to the comments of the community board.
I think they've already voted on it, Jay.
Not for the EIS for 681 Clarkson? No, they haven't. We're in the EIS. Later on, it'll go to the general plan, which is later approved. There's a process in which, when it comes time for the general plan to be voted upon by the board of directors of New York State Empire State Development, it's not up to it for 681 Clarkson, okay? And on the other ones, we didn't submit any comments. And it's a land use issue. And what's going on is people from other neighborhoods, it's very easy for people to volunteer and say they don't want it. You know, I mean, like, I respect John Craver, but, you know, John Craver's an architect who lives in PLG. Okay, and we have a second architect who's on the Vital Brooklyn projects. But like Cheryl lives here for 50 years, and there's no one on it who represents the community. So you got to have people on it who could make a motion, force the issue, have comments on the sunlight, the land use. They're going to put up 15-story buildings, and there's no parking. And the reason, just to address some of the comments, the reason why you have these tall buildings that are going up is because this community board didn't have a problem with the transit zone. You take away the transit zone, which is all of CB9, and you won't have all of these tall buildings, because it's set in a transit zone when there's no under affordable housing, you don't have to put any parking units.
Okay, Jay, thank you. I got to move on.
Fine.
Tara, and then Pat, and then we have to move on to the next section.
Yeah, I just want to make a point that it is concerning that this committee is pretty much people that are only centered in a very small area of CB9, and there isn't anybody. In fact, I call it the southern part of our district, and I guess Jay calls it East Flatbush. There's nobody on the committee, and I do believe that this committee could pass some resolutions for moratoriums on development in that area. I mean, the community board is merely advisory, like nothing we do or say is going to have a legal impact, but it does help a great deal to pass resolutions that support the community and come before the board, so the board is aware that there is an issue in that community. So I don't live there, but I know there's some new members that do, and I'm willing to listen and hear them out in EP, and I hope that Land Use ULURP is as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Pat?
I just want to state again, can we stick to the ULURP issues? Jay has brought this up, I would say almost half of a year. He's been to the housing committees. He's said the same things. He has been listening to, if you want to go, you could actually go back from last year. It was said, it was heard. It is not a ULURP issue at this point. It is a state issue. So I would like to stick to the issues, although I'm not the chair. Let's stick to the issue, because we got some stuff that we got to talk about in terms of Franklin Avenue, which in fact is a ULURP issue. So to go on and on and on about something that's not a ULURP issue with your personal stuff, it needs to just stop. And we need to, let's deal with our issue that we have in front of us, which is important to all of us, which is Franklin Avenue, and that is going to be a ULURP issue.
Pat Moses, where do you live? Do you live near this?
Jay, we got to move on. We do have to move on to Franklin Avenue, but I do encourage all of the community members to come with any of their land use concerns. They're all important with respect to Vital Brooklyn. If people want to bring us updates as to the timeline, what's going on, if there are any mandated state hearings, public hearings, whatever, please let us know. Okay, so 962, 972 Franklin Avenue. I sent the committee members the link to the documents that were filed on that. a draft environmental impact statement scope of work was filed. There was a hearing about it over the summer. I know several of you attended. Just for everyone else who's here, basically there's three parts to this application. There's an upzoning, a residential upzoning from an R6A zone to an R8A zone. What does that mean? Essentially, it allows height to go from a maximum of 7 stories up to 14 stories. It doubles the number of units that would be permitted on that site, I think from about 200 to over 400. Second, they're adding a commercial overlay at the ground floor. Currently, there is no retail commercial permitted on that section of Franklin Avenue. There is a grandfathered factory on that site, but the actual zoning is residential. And the third thing is there is a special permit request in for a parking waiver to reduce the number of required parking spaces from 140 to 70. So if I can just start off the comments by asking any of the committee members who attended the public scoping hearing for the DAIS to give us a quick summary of how that went, you know, some of the public comments and including any comments from politicians that you heard and so on. Esteban, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So the scoping hearing was, I guess it was last month. Was it a couple months ago? A month ago? A while back. And I guess just my general observation is that the same people that fought against the original plan for 960 Franklin came back and said basically the same thing. And I was actually surprised to see the botanical garden was there in opposition to this plan, because of course now we've established that that sort of as a community we want to maintain the early 90s rezoning that was meant to protect the garden, and so I was encouraged to see that sort of extend to even like a smaller building. I think it was, I think maybe 2 people spoke in support of the development. It was pretty one-sided, and it felt really just like an extension of what we had already done for the past few years. So so I think, you know, just the from my perspective, and it was the same dude that like came and like, you know, did all the song and dance from Continuum Partners or whatever. I have a lot of questions about the ownership of this site, how it's been transferred in hands, and also how that ties into the rezoning across the street from me that's currently going up, which folks here on the call fought in court, won in court, and then got overruled at the appellate level, which was sad and frustrating. So I think we need to keep our eye on it, and yeah, I would just encourage folks to look through all of those things. If anybody can find out more stuff about the ownership, it's the same. I feel like the same. It's like deja vu. Like somebody's filing something, but somebody else is actually doing it, and they do that to get everybody confused and end up, you know, getting what they want to get. So it's a smaller building than before, but I think, you know, as a community, we made really clear what we wanted in terms of the you know, maintaining the zoning that had been passed by city planning decades ago. And as Alicia famously has said over and over again, the sun has not moved. The shadows have not moved. It's all like it, you know, there was a reason for doing it then. I think it weakens us to change that now, after going so hard for 2 or 3 years and making that like such a central thing. And so again, botanical garden, I'm sure that you know, you're going to hear from Municipal Art Society and from folks that were involved in, you know, 960 Franklin, and primarily the community groups that formed the you know, did the bulk of the work on that fight. So so yeah, I mean, I think it looks good in terms of like like we won last time, so I think we can win again. It's, but we have to do it. We have to like do the work. So, yep.
Okay, thank you. Alicia, and if you can tell us also what was said, for example, by the Botanic Gardens or by the council member, that would be very helpful.
Botanic Gardens said that based upon the EIS that they were performing, that they were not performing it adequately as far as the they were stating that the city tends to wait for a couple of hours after the sun has risen and then to determine the impact, whereas their plant life depends upon when the sun actually rises, and so they did a shadow impact, not disclosed it to the community, which states that this development, even though it's only 14 stories, will still have a detrimental effect, and it would harm certain species, especially the species that are in danger. And so, and the desert as well. So their position is that this development, even though it's only now an additional 7 stories, will have still a negative environmental impact. Our city council person, city council person Hudson first came out with, oh, I don't agree with it. Oh, well, we heard that one before. Oh, I don't agree with it. No, but then as she ended her speech, she says, but if you first you have to check off some boxes, and if you check off those boxes, we can negotiate. So she left the door open for developers to come and negotiate with her, which is quite common in our community, how our elected officials negotiate with developers, something that I'm sure John is very familiar with, and continues to sit there and double talk us. As Native Americans used to say, speaks with forked tongue. And so we can expect that she will be coming back, eventually agreeing to the project if they give us something, and not caring about how the Botanic Gardens will be affected with this rezoning application, despite their own expertise saying that it will have a negative impact.
John Wolfling.
So I want to point out one thing in relation to the current C6 district and the potential for shadows, increased shadows, the increment of shadows on the Botanic Garden. There's actually a strip along Washington Avenue that's currently an R8A. So there is, and I'm going to use this term as of right, which I think we all now have a better understanding of, there's currently an as of right ability to go up to 12 stories all along Washington Avenue. Now that's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's what the current zoning permits. So I recognize that 14 stories is taller than what is there now. It's also taller than what's permitted by the current R6 district, but there is a future where all along Washington Avenue on the east side of the street, that those buildings could be 12 stories. I'm just offering that so you understand the context of what the existing zoning is. So that's what I'll contribute to this discussion.
I think
Thanks.
that's misleading.
Yakov.
And I would
Alicia, you're next. Yakov.
Well, thank you very much. And John, thank you for that clarification. It's important information. Are we voting on anything tonight, Suki? Just more conversation?
No, this is a conversation because there was a public scoping hearing over the summer. So there, obviously the time that there will be a formal time for comment.
So even on the first, the Nostrand Avenue, also, we're not going to vote.
Nostrand Avenue, we were told by Dante that they are expecting it to be referred soon and for the clock to start ticking on our comment period. But it has not, he has not told me that it has happened yet.
All right, thank you. So, Alicia brought up an interesting point. I just want to comment on it. when I was on this committee, we took the position not to negotiate with developers. I say we, the committee as a whole, and it didn't help us very much because essentially, if developers are coming in and having conversations, if we want to have a seat at the table, we have to talk. It's just the way it is. If you just take the position, we're going to shut everybody down, then nobody listens to us. And pretty much the previous council member really didn't care much what the board said. I know Crystal's different. I know she cares very much what the board says. And that brings me to another point. Sook, I asked that you enforce the rules of the board, that there should be no attacks against people, no slander. There were several comments made by Alicia, which I would say are just absolute conjecture. Her opinion of who Crystal is and what she will do, it has no place at this board. She hasn't done anything. She has every right to speak and ask questions. And Alicia it's not it's not appropriate. I know she has a history of this, but certainly it's not fair at this committee, at this stage, for her to project or to comment about who Crystal is and what she will do. Let her actions speak for themselves. And I ask, thank you.
Thank you, Jakob. Alicia.
Is a politician. She is elected by the people. The people have the right to speak about her. There's no
You have the
law.
right, but you
I'm exercising my right to speak about Crystal Hudson and her previous behavior, as well as her existing behavior. I have that right. I have the right to speak about my elected officials, and you
have
do
the
not
right
have
to criticize, not to make things up, Alicia.
Anyway, I would like to address John's position about the fact that all of there's now on R6A. So let's be clear, this particular development project sits at an angle, it's a triangle. And what they did in 1991 is they determined that there were certain plots of land going along the Book and Botanic Gardens, and the most detrimental was the Spice Factory because it is the closest to the gardens, and specifically will overshadow the 3 greenhouses that are adjacent to that spot. So that spot was classified as a soft spot and was the most dangerous of all the spots. So as you go along the corridor, the land gets further away from, so of course, if you build 12 stories here, it won't be detrimental, but if you build it here, it can be, and it is, and that's why they stated it as such. It's called the soft site, and it's the most dangerous of all the property along the Book and Botanic Gardens. And this was noted by the city in 1991 when they changed the zoning. So it's not the fact that, oh my God, we got R6 all along the corridor. They specifically said that the 4-6 would continue to put garden, and that a R8A would not. And this developer is asking for even more past the 12, they're asking for 14. And the garden, I would think, would know more about the protection of their land and their natural resources than a developer who sits on this board and now is on the land use committee, speaking as a developer. So let's just be clear about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. LaShawn, Esteban, and John.
Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. I put my hand down. Thank you.
Okay, Esteban?
Yeah, just for the record, if anybody wants documentation of this, there's pretty extensive receipts, or for lack of a better term, pretty extensive documentation showing that the Franklin Avenue rezoning, which we were just talking about, which was on either side of Tivoli, was negotiated by Crystal when she was doing that work for Lori Combo. This was back in 2017. So I think that's where some of the trepidation is coming from, is that the fact that the disclosures that I have are basically of all the meetings that she had with the developers, and Lori basically gave her free rein, and then we spent years in court trying to fight that. So that's not to say that's what she's going to do now. We don't know what she's, she hasn't been in there long enough, but I think that's just the history of where that's coming from. So yeah.
Okay, John?
So yeah, I can't speak to the history of this particular district back decades, like some of the people on the committee can, but there is in fact an R8A strip that comes all along Washington, all the way down to Empire Boulevard. The MIH program that the developer is proposing to use here does give them 2 additional floors. It allows them to go from 12 stories to 14 stories. So that is absolutely correct. It's, I think, one of the mechanisms that allows for the MIH program to work. That's additional floor area that is intended to be affordable. And I'm using quotes in affordable because I know there's a lot of affordable is in the eye of the beholder. So that is, I think it's a loaded term. And if we're going to use it, we need to be specific about it, what it means for AMI. But that's one of the mechanisms that is in the MIH program, the Mandatory Inclusionary Housing Program. So I still stand by my earlier assessment that all along Washington Avenue, there is an R8A district. And if city planning was really wanting to restrict the heights, there's a mechanism called a limited height district that they could have applied to this, but they kept the R8A along Washington Avenue. So I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to comment? Any member of the public who wants to comment on the Franklin Avenue application?
Just one thing, Suki, I went on to DCP's website today and it says that they have not completed the EIS. So I'm a little confused.
No, as I said, there is a draft EIS and that was the basis for the public scoping workshop.
And where are those documents? Because according to their website, they have not completed the draft EIS.
Can I raise my hand?
Yes.
It was a draft scope of work for the EIS.
Yes. Apologies, draft scope of work.
That makes, okay, now that's clear. I thought it was the draft EIS. Okay, so.
Any other comments from either the public or the committee members on Franklin Avenue?
When did you expect for them to be completing and create the draft EIS? Is there a time frame that you know of?
I am not sure. I guess it depends on them to some extent, but I will find out and I will ask Mia to send out the timeline if there is a time limit. Go ahead.
Will you be asking to see the what the opinions are of the various agencies which they have to collaborate with regarding this application?
Yes, we can request that from city planning. Mia, can you? That's something that I think that we can write to city planning to request, right?
Or you can go to either city planning or you can go to the department itself, the transportation department, the parks department, and you can ask them what dialogue they have about the draft scope of work, which is what they're going to be voting on or assessing, and see what's done. Because I know there's a between the agencies and the Department of City Planning before the Department of City Planning finalizes the draft EIS.
We can definitely do that. Nicola?
One of the things that I'm concerned about, and I think we all have been for some time, is that these projects have been segmented. And so with the 970, I think that's what it's called now, Franklin Avenue rezoning, the impact is only related to that project. We know that we have the rest of Franklin Avenue that's also in the process of being developed. We have Firestone. We have a number of projects that are within the quarter-mile radius to this project. So what I asked for is that we need to do some type of a cumulative impact assessment of what all of these projects and the number of units and the number of people that are now being planned for this community, what is that going to do to us from a water perspective, traffic, parking, subway, school, etc. So to only look at this one project is a problem. So I think we as a ULURP committee need to figure out, how do we push this concern? Is it with our elected official? Who do we need to raise it to time and time again and make sure that someone is looking at the cumulative impact on us?
I agree. Esteban?
Yeah, I would add to that, the armory is like, so I'm like right in between both sites, the armory, the two buildings here on Franklin, and then the next one over, all those need to be considered. The other thing, and like I alluded to this, but in terms of the ownership, for folks that haven't heard this already, the buyer of the original buyer of the Franklin Avenue rezoning buildings filed the application went through, and then somebody else bought them. Basically, they set up that. So the same thing is happening again. That exact same buyer has now bought the Spice Factory and is doing that for Continuum, who used to own it. So like this is just like a literal repeat of that. Yeah. So it's important because that they're clearly paying attention to the segmentation issue. Like they know everything that's happening and they have a plan for it. So we need to be aware of what's going on there. Yeah.
And Maxine.
Yes,
Maxine.
thank you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with the cumulative effect and how it would affect our entire community. Yes, including Nostrand Avenue, everything dumped on Nostrand Avenue. And an advisory opinion on a moratorium on this community would be great from the community board, from the ULURP committee specifically, to look at the cumulative effect of our community and all of these development. Also, lastly, I was concerned with Sarah. Sarah, I wonder if you still there to understand with 975, what was associated. It had as of right to build. They had the right to go 9 stories with the fresh program. Okay, so again, I want you to differentiate that the community did not buy it. We did not advocate for anything other than what they had the right to do. We fought and I think we're very successful in getting a supermarket back. And Cheryl, yes, as of right means in that particular area, they have a right to build up to a certain height. That's what the zoning laws allow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maxine. Were there any other hands that I missed? So I did have one comment and question myself on the Franklin Avenue application. I noticed that it includes very small portions of 3 other lots besides the main lot that's being rezoned. And I didn't see, I'm kind of wondering if there's any justification to city planning for why those very small portions of those additional lots were included. Did anybody else spot?
Yes.
Whether they gave a reason?
No, the last time that they included it and we filed the lawsuit against them, their response was, oh, we just wanted a certain geographical shape. But we know that once you put an extra zoning category onto a piece of land, even 1%, that they can go to the Board of Standards of Appeals and ask for the entire lot to be that zoning. So that's the problem with this. They never justified it. The city never responded back adequately as to say why they were including them, except that they wanted a certain geographical shape. And there wasn't really a very defined geographical shape. It wasn't like they were trying to make a rectangle or a triangle or a circle. It was just, oh.
Although, to be honest, I don't know of anything in the zoning resolution that requires certain geographical shapes.
Doesn't. It's just to give away to developers to allow them to have an extra zoning category onto their lot, where later on they will be able to say, hey, I got 2 zoning lots and I would like the higher one to apply, by going to the Board of Standards and Appeals, which if anybody knows anything about that agency, is just as corrupt as the Department of City Planning, if not more.
So I'll just say something and then I'll call on John Wolfling. There is a kind of legal principle that prohibits what's known as spot zonings. You're not permitted to either to rezone a single lot for the purpose of either helping that property owner or hurting that property owner. It's only allowed pursuant to some kind of a citywide program or citywide policy, which I guess in this case would be mandatory inclusionary housing. So it's somewhat surprising in that regard that they've included these very de minimis portions of other lots. And in fact, they even state in that draft scope of work that there's expected to be no impact in terms of redevelopment whatsoever on these other lots because their portions that are included are so de minimis. Although with 1015 Washington, which I think is an occupied apartment building, it's a little bit more than de minimis. It's about 25%. So that does definitely seem like a nice little, nice little favor for them. John, and so this whole issue of spot zonings is something that tends to come up repeatedly in land use. So it's definitely something that you guys should be aware of and keep your eye out for. John Wolfling?
Yeah, so I've dealt with city planning quite a bit. And what might be going on here, and I'm not saying this is exactly what's going on here, it might be what's going on here. City planning likes to create these rezonings that are, fit into the language of the zoning map. So if there is an overlay or if there's a change, they like to have it 100 feet from the street or something like that. So what looks to be happening is that they are including a portion of lot 63, a portion of lot 46 to maybe clean up that geometry of the rezoning area. I don't know. This is just my guess from my experience with city planning that they're trying to make a more clean zoning map. That may not be the case. Maybe it's something more nefarious. I don't know. But I would guess that it's got something to do with city planning's preference for these kind of more regular zoning division lines.
Yes, but it's not a regular rezoning line. If you look at it, it actually takes it out of a rectangle and makes it this very odd shape. So
but that doesn't necessarily, I mean, not every zoning map and not every rezoning is regular. I mean, there's no particular land use or zoning or legal principle that it needs to be regular. What you have to avoid is these spot zonings. So does anyone and the other thing that I noticed was with respect to the special permit to reduce the number of parking spots, they have to, one of the things that they talk about that they need to show is that there's a need for it, that it would be infeasible for them to build an underground garage. So they say it's too expensive for us to build, but that it's just a claim. There's nothing kind of behind that. And so I'm just wondering if anybody else noticed that, if anybody else has any comments about the parking issue.
Well, what I noticed is they're doubling the height of the building. So they're doubling the amount of housing, and yet they're cutting in half the amount of parking that they require. So that kind of doesn't intuitively make any sense. I mean, you're supposed to have 140. You want to go down to, 75 or whatever, but then you want to double the size of the building. All they want to do is cut costs and cheat the public, and then have this influx of a tremendous amount of parking cars, because if you put luxury cars, the norm is that if you have a luxury apartment, you're going to have 2 cars per apartment. And so you're putting over 400 apartments, you're probably going to have about 800 cars, and then you're only going to house 75 of them. It's just a way for developers to make money. They're
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I
concerned.
didn't really see any statement in the land use package as to how much it would cost them to build an underground garage, for example, which was kind of what I was expecting to see, given the language around that. And this is something that I expect to come up in many rezoning applications. I think, as Jay pointed out, it's coming up with Vital Brooklyn. And that may not be part of the state zoning override. That may actually be a city planning special permit. So you should look into that. John Craver and then Nicola Cox.
Yeah, just as a quick rule of thumb, each for costs of building underground or garage parking, you're talking $60,000 to $100,000 basically per minimum per space. And I think if we're going to talk about housing for people versus housing for cars, I think we had to keep those ideas. They're going to be in conflict. And I would opt more to house people rather than cars.
But keeping in mind also that that if they expect.
Not
that
necessarily.
to
Why
be-
can't you have other options? Why are we always defaulting to cars here in central Brooklyn? Not even central Brooklyn. We have Trent. It's next to the shuttle. It's a few blocks from the 2 and 3 up on Eastern Parkway. You've got the Q down on Lincoln Road. I mean, there's transit within the area, and so there are options, and people choose not to use them because they are given free parking. Everything is free.
Well, it
There's
wouldn't
no
be
cost to them.
free in a private building, right? The cars will be paying.
Because, if
Right.
you're buying an apartment in that private building, you're paying for that parking whether you use it or not. That's how that works.
Right.
If I spend $1 million on parking spaces for 10 units, right? That's $10,000 more per unit. I'm going to get, as a developer, I would want that money back with profit on top of that. So it's not free. There's a cost. And again, I'd rather house people than cars.
Thank you.
So, and 800 parking spaces, never going to happen. Never going to happen. There are giant buildings downtown that, what's his face? The ex-president's corrupt son-in-law was initially involved in, that has like 750 parking spaces, which were more than what zoning required. And it's an incredible number of parking spaces.
That's for the Transportation Committee. We discussed that.
Very interesting to know. Thank you. Nicola, and then
Yes,
Rod, and then
I pay for
Alicia.
parking spaces.
Yeah, related, because my concern was around the parking as well. I would like to know, is it possible to find out the experience related to parking at 626 Flatbush and Linden Boulevard? I think are some of our bigger developments that have been around for a few years now, to see how much of the parking has been used. 626, I believe, got some kind of an exemption, correct? Then they come down on the parking spaces that were required?
They
Is it possible?
certainly do not have the 50% that would normally be required under zoning.
And do we know what the experience in terms of parking in that area has been? Have all of the parking spaces in the building, are they utilized? I'm just trying to get a feel of what's really happening, because I think that the number of parking spaces, to reduce it to 20%, given the number of units and the affluence of the people that are coming into the area, they're not taking the train.
Thank you.
And to think that they're going to be all in Ubers and drive shares, no, they're going to be trying to park on the street. And right now, street parking is being reduced. Like if they don't have a lot to park in that they have paid for as part of their rent or they're paying for, they're going to try and park on the street. And we have zip cars, city bikes, electric bikes, and electric vehicles soon that will be taking away the free parking that we have. So we need to be realistic in terms of what we need to accommodate for in the community. And I believe that these buildings, if they're going to build, they need to have a certain number of parking spaces for the people, the residents that they're introducing to the community. and not try to use the few parking spaces that exist and that are becoming fewer and far between. We can't support hundreds of additional people on the few public parking spaces that exist right now.
Rod?
So my comment, I just have to disagree with John's comment. Being a resident here in East Flatbush for 57 years, I've seen a lot of changes. And I can definitely say that parking is an issue. I can definitely say that the more individuals that you have coming in these buildings with generational families and so forth, there's going to be parking issues. We have them right now. And I can also say that even with some of the other affordable homes that we have and some of the shelters, right, they have cars and they're not registered and they're taking up spots all along the streets. So I think that if you take an assessment, a good assessment of everything within the community, you will find out that the information that you're providing is flawed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yakov. Yakov?
Right. Thank you so much. Just trying to get away from the baby crying. She don't hear it. Yeah, I want to just agree with, the parking is, I'm a lifelong resident of Crown Heights. I've lived there my entire life, 40 years. The parking is a serious issue, especially with city bikes and the loading zones the DOT are putting in. It's a real problem. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that when we have this attitude, we're not talking, we're not negotiating, then we really have no seat at the table, and parking something we can negotiate. I believe that, and some of the experts could correct me, that affordable housing, you don't have to put in the parking. So if a building is 50% affordable, it's only 50% parking on the regular apartments. On the Clarkson project, I mean, they have I don't remember how much they have no parking whatsoever there. It's you look at the number of apartments and the amount of just staff they're bringing in and the amount of parking spots, it's just not doable, and it's becoming a very serious issue. And the bottom line is, when somebody goes to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, they come back at 7 p.m. and it takes them 3 hours to find a parking space. It's a big, big deal. And parking is a very serious issue. And it should be a priority for this committee and for this board that when developments go up, there's sufficient parking. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jakob. Felice? Felice, did you want to comment?
Yes, I did. Parking has always been an issue in our community, and with the new buildings that's being built, they certainly, as you see and hear, it's not accommodating the community. You have people parking in our community from other locations. And not to mention these zip cars. Now there are permanent spots. On Montgomery, there's 2 spots for zip cars. On Washington, there's 2 spots for zip cars. Everywhere zip cars are taking spaces. Just to add, but bring it all to the transportation committee. Let's discuss it there. And let's do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl and then
Thank you.
Alicia.
Hi, good night. Yeah, I just want, do the math. Just, this is not that hard. Do the math. City bikes, projects, people that do not have cars registered in New York State. They're in Connecticut, they're in New Jersey, they're out of state, they're paper plates, nothing. I don't know where, I'm not gonna say any names, but I don't know where he gets the statistics from. Ask the community. This is not that hard. Do the math.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Alicia?
I just wanted to say that we have to be realistic, that when you build luxury development community, going to get cars. People who drive, for the most part, do not take public transportation. We know that our public transportation is dangerous, it's not efficient. Try traveling on it on the weekend. It's a disaster. And that's our reality. And the reality is, even if we have not sat there and built all these luxury towers, we're still the effects of gentrification. Wealthier and wealthier group of individuals coming in with more and more cars. And to think that a developer should not sit there and pay for the parking when he's benefiting from, you know, an increase in is ridiculous. And as far as community benefits negotiating, has anybody paid any attention to the fact that there has never been a community benefit that has been bestowed in our that actually has materialized? I mean, you talk about negotiating, let's sit down at the table, but show me a development project that people negotiated for something and got it. We saw the stadium. It was a wide world event, and there was a book of benefits. Where are those benefits today? Right in the garbage. You don't get community benefits. New York City first track record with obtaining benefits. Even when the other development, we had our city council person negotiate for 120 affordable housing units, and she agreed to rezoning. When we took her to court as developers, they said they didn't have a contract for it. It didn't exist. It was just, yeah. So now you want us to do that again so that we could sit down at the table again and ask for something that never materializes? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. That's just, show me a community benefit that has actually materialized in a Black community in the last decade. Please just send it to me. You got my email, info@mtop.org. Send it to me. You have my email, Yakov.
Thank you,
Send it.
Alicia.
Thank you.
Jay?
Yes, I just wanted to make the comment. I've heard the catchphrase housing for people, not housing for cars. I wanted to just throw something out. What I see now is a lot of housing for people who don't use cars. Okay, that's what you're doing. Housing for people who don't use cars, or housing for people who make good money, who make a high salary, who have the disposable income to pay for Uber, because they may not be taking their family on the subway at certain times at night. Okay, there's a difference in income on being able to do it. Different strokes for different folks. If somebody lives close to Nostrand, okay, let them live that lifestyle. But if you have people on the other side of New York Avenue in East Flatbush, and you take a look at the cars that are in the streets, okay? You take a look at the cars that are in the street, do a parking survey. These are people, these are families who relied upon cars, multi-generational families. The transit zones should be changed. If anybody on this committee lives in a place and they want a transit zone that provides no parking necessary for affordable housing, so you could build high, keep your transit zone near Nostrand Avenue. But let the people who live in East Flatbush, who are east of New York Avenue, let them change the transit zone. Let your city council people change this transit zone, which we never went into, so you don't have affordable housing that doesn't have to have parking. That's what causes all these problems. In 2016, de Blasio created this transit zone. You could build high because you don't need the parking. So get rid of the transit zone. And number two is, I'd like this committee, previously, I remember last year, I spoke with, on this committee with Suki and with Esteban, and I said, I have a deed issue on 681 Clarkson. And I said, if I could show the deed, and if we could possibly show that we can get it to the city council, which is another level, would you do something? Would you give the community more rights? So there is a current land use issue, a deed issue on 681 Clarkson that exists on whether the remainder interest, which says that 681 Clarkson has to go back and revert to the city when it's no longer a hospital use. And then when you take a look at section 14 of the UDC Act, it says that now you may not have to have, you do have to have a city council vote to get rid of a real property interest. What I want is, I want this land use committee to make a resolution to Letitia James and ask us, is there a land use issue on the deed that this community, that it has to go to the city council? Okay, and I don't know if Yakov Berman would help me on this. I don't know, he gave in comments, he said, I don't know if he would be interested in saying that Vital Brooklyn should be part of this committee. And again, I have to stress, there has to be 2 people on this committee who are from East Flatbush to make a motion, because otherwise it's going to get stonewalled. It is a TRIE neighborhood. There's 23 of them in the city. That means it's a disadvantaged neighborhood, and you're destroying that community who relies upon parking, and you don't have anybody on it who could make motions from East Flatbush. You have to put 2 people on it, and Suki, you have the right to do it. And I request that you put 2 people on it, number 1. And number 2, I want to know, are you going to give comments on Vital Brooklyn? Okay. On the EIS, which didn't happen yet for 681 Clarkson. The directors didn't vote on that, which comes next. And on Utica Crescent, which is Kingsbrook Jewish, there's a 4-month statute of limitations. It was affirmed by the directors in June of 2023. We have 4 months to sue. And I want to know what the community board thinks on that one. Next to Utica Crescent is John Wolfling's project, where John's a fantastic architect, an amazing architect. He's the architect on Kingsbrook Estates. That didn't even happen yet. I asked that this community give comments, put 2 people on it where they can comment. It's a land use issue. If you're on this committee, you have to care about everybody. You are a fiduciary for the whole district. There's cumulative impacts all over the place because the original RFPs from New York State happened in 2018. They knew about everything. So you have to care about everybody, not just the neighborhood. I asked for 2 people to be on it from East Flatbush, that you appoint 2 people. Thank you. So they can make motions. Takes 1
Okay,
person to
thank
make,
you.
2nd person to, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Just to be clear, I do not place resident committee members on the committee. That's the chair of the community board. And you should apply to the community board if you you send your application to the community board staff if you're interested in being placed on a committee.
Right, but the bylaws say you can. It says that the chair of a committee can appoint in addition to the chair of the board. And
That's
the
true.
this board will not put me on it. Or I don't want
It
to be on it.
definitely says
Think
that
other
in the
people-
bylaws.
Yeah, the bylaws say the chair.
that the
So I just
chair
ask,
can-
put other residents on, not me. I'm not asking to be
So
put
that
on.
might be something we need to discuss at the executive committee because that hasn't happened during the time that I was on the board. Maxine, Burl, and John, please keep your comments to 2 minutes because we need to move on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that many in the community use their cars to make a living. They're subcontractors, they're computer technicians, camera installers, etc. And please don't put any more transit on our already congested transit corridor, Nostrand Avenue. And please leave the B49 bus on Bedford Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Burl? Burl? Burl, you have the floor if you want to make a comment. Burl, your hand is raised. Would you like to make a comment? Okay, John Wolfling, we'll move on and get her again.
Yep. Okay. So there's a project I'd like to reference that I did prior to de Blasio putting in place and city planning putting in place the transit zone, which allowed for no parking for affordable housing units at a certain AMI, 80% AMI or lower. So that transit zone and that exemption did not apply to the project that I completed. It's in East New York. It was on a NYCHA campus. We did 330 units of all affordable housing. And I got to tell you, at best, half of the parking spots that were provided are being used. So I want my professional experience to be able to inform this board and the decisions that we make. I can tell you, I have real world experience of projects that have overbuilt parking, and I'm telling you, it's a real issue. It's something that we should all be mindful about. This may not be a popular thing to say on this call, but I'm telling you, I have real projects that have overbuilt parking, and that draws away from valuable public resources that could have been used to subsidize other housing in other neighborhoods So I hope I'm under 2 minutes. And by the way, Jay, thank you for the compliments. A more jaded version of me might think that you're trying to, I don't know, butter me up for something. But anyway, thank you anyway for the compliments.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
Two
you were asking
different
me before,
areas.
Beryl. Yeah, something was wrong with my device. I couldn't answer.
Okay.
By the way, I'm sorry about before. I wanted to say in short, first of all, we think very much like Jay that the people of East Flatbush, I'm from here, and we're not being that much representative. A lot of people, or almost everyone that we speak to, a lot of people don't know about these projects, but the people are not happy about it. And when it's I don't know about the people that build the parkings, but how much time we have to spend each time if you come when you come back home after 6-7 o'clock, how much time you have to look for a parking, that also speaks for itself. But I had a separate question why I came, why I'm here. Which committee am I supposed to speak to? There's a park on 777 Rutland Road, a huge park that I think belongs to a public school. And a lot of time, a lot of the children and the parents want to use the park, and there's a manager there that does not let them in. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Who can we speak to? And and a lot of times it's not being used during the day. They use it for big sports. But there's a basketball place there. There's a lot of a huge, nice place for kids to play. Which committee or is it appropriate to speak to about, to try to work on something that the park could be used for the community, for the public community? Would this be the right committee or the right place?
So the best committee for you to talk to is probably the Parks Committee. If the space is owned by a public school, you could also possibly go to the Education Committee. But I think the Parks Committee would really be the right place to start. But thank you for raising that issue because, as a land use committee, I think this is one of the things that we need to be aware of, what land is being used for in the community, what people want the land to be used for. And, as someone pointed out, there is a lot of development going on in this area. So open space is something that does need to be considered as part of any kind of environmental impact or environmental analysis. So thank you for
So
that.
if there's anything that we could do about it, and I hope that all these new projects, we're getting hit from all sides. It's like we feel like we don't have any say. It's completely I hope something could be done about that. I remember the bus on Notion, the very short, they said it's not, I don't live in that area, so it doesn't impact me, but I remember they were saying it's not going to cause more traffic. I have nothing against the bus lane because a lot of people use the buses, and that's between the cars and the buses, and it benefits the people that use the buses, but it did cause traffic to the people that use the cars. It still may be a good thing because a lot of people use the buses, but what they kept on saying, it won't impact. These things do impact. They should be honest about the impact that has on the community about parking.
So I think, once again, people are telling me I need to stick to ULURP issues, but I think I hear a really strong common desire for more planning, more throughout the district, more analysis of environmental impacts on all kinds of things. So that's something that, as a general goal beyond these, specific zoning applications, that we need to be thinking about. Okay, we do have to move on at this point. It's past 9 o'clock. I want to raise one last aspect of the Franklin Avenue zoning that segues into our next segment, which is there's a commercial overlay being added to this section of Franklin that would permit ground floor retail on a corridor that otherwise does not have retail. And this is something that we're, this question of where can we have businesses is something that comes up in the city of Yes. So I'd like to know what you guys think about this. Some people pointed out that it's actually a very large amount of commercial space that's being added, and that has impacts. Anybody? Alicia?
What we need to take into context is the fact that the Cornell Realty also is asking for the same thing. So there will be commercial. There will be a commercial corridor by the time they're finished, all the way
So it
down.
is going to
Franklin
be a
Avenue.
significant change to the area.
You have both on both sides of Tivoli Tower, you have development projects that are going up 14 stories, 17 stories, excuse me, and they both have commercial overlays. And so you're going to have a lot of commercial overlay anyway. The issue really is the fact that the city is trying to pass the City of Yes that will allow all types of commercial development projects now inside of the residential portion of the building. Any and all commercial, whereas before it was restricted to certain types of businesses. They're trying to open that door up, Pandora's box, and also allow light manufacturing inside of these buildings. So you now can have a new building that on the ground floor will be commercial. You can have restaurants and bars, and what this first floor can have restaurants and bars, and the second floor can have restaurant and bars, all within a residential building. That's the problem that I see happening, because those are the zoning laws that are trying to be changed. So that's what we have to look at, because you can bet your bottom dollar the developer will be taking more of their residential and turning it into commercial, so that they could get a higher profit.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments on the addition of the ground floor retail space to Franklin Avenue? Pat Moses? Pat Moses?
No, I don't have anything. I'm just checking the time. And I just want to make a statement that really time is important in terms of holding a meeting. To go on and on and on and on and on. I really would like you to stay within a time frame. If it's from 7 to 8:30, then that's what we should do. And that's how you have to chair it. But to go on and on and on, the subjects are all over the map. You know, in my opinion, I think we need to be aware of people's time.
Absolutely. So Esteban, any comments on the commercial aspects of Franklin Avenue?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it's interesting. I was just thinking back to when they were doing the hearings on those two buildings on either side of Tivoli, and the borough president's office at the time, Eric, talked about this stuff specifically, and now it's coming out in this City of Yes stuff. So this is like a long game on behalf of the now mayor. It's literally exactly what he wanted in these two developments before. It's just doing it on a citywide level. So just an observation.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I would say that to transform a corridor that has been all residential to one that now has ground floor retail is a significant change in character. One of the things that was pointed out in the City of Yes public hearings, there was a lot of public concern about that, a lot of comments saying that it would change the character of the neighborhood. You know, it's more noisy, there's more traffic, you know, there are certain types of activities going on that are not compatible with an all residential neighborhood. So that's, you know, something that it seems like people are concerned about. So before I actually go into the specific proposals for City of Yes, I just want to say that this round, which is City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, is designed to help small businesses and large businesses, but it's basically, it's designed to promote business opening, to make it easier for people to do business in the city, and, you know, in their words, to kind of rationalize the zoning code for commercial businesses. We have a lot of rules about which businesses can open up in which zones. There are zoning categories ranging from C1 to C8, that each of them are use groups that have different types of businesses that are permitted to open. There are zones that do not permit commercial. As Alicia noted, there are restrictions on what floor you can do a business on. So that is, the kind of stated broad intent behind this. And so I wanted to kick this off by asking if there's anyone from the Economic Development Committee or anyone from the community who owns a business who has any comments to us about what they see as the challenges in terms of opening and running a business or the opportunities, just to give us some background before we start talking about the zoning. Anybody? Vanessa, I know you're on the Economic Development Committee.
I am, and I can't really speak to like zoning issues that one would have for my own personal business. There's like no restrictions on gift shops. I mean, you can put them anywhere as far as you can put retail. We didn't really talk about that in our meeting the other day. So there was nothing about all that, discuss the second floor situations and all that.
Even if it's non-zoning things, if you can just tell us what you think are the most salient things from your point of view. Challenges in terms of opening a business or running a business.
The biggest challenge is capital. It's always it. It's hard for people to get money at a rate that is affordable to pay back. I mean, that's the biggest issue, I think.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a comment? John Wolfling?
Sure, yeah. So what I'd like to recommend, an approach to reviewing and making recommendations on this this City of Yes proposal is that we look at each one of the proposals on its own individual merits. I think there's some things that city planning is proposing to do that are good. I think this community board probably sees some of those things as bad, but I don't think we should throw the whole thing out just because there might be some permissiveness for a certain type of use. I think there are some really beneficial things that will help our community. So I think we need to look at it on a, and there's 16 proposals. So it's a lot of things to look at, a lot of information to digest. I think it's 9:17. It's not the right time to undertake a detailed, thorough review so that everybody can have
We're
the chance
certainly
to.
not going to get through all of the proposals tonight. And just let me also say, in terms of the timeline, they've just completed 2 sets of public hearings, and which I know all of you attended. And they expect to refer this to the City Planning Commission in October. So this is the period, I think, when we can get clarifications, we can make comments. And once they release the actual zoning amendments, is when we'll be able to vote on these and make formal recommendations. Because as I think many of you remember from the last round of City of Yes amendments, the devil is really in the details in terms of how these zoning amendments are worded. So if I can just get all of the committee members or anyone who attended these public information sessions, but we'll start with the committee members first. I would love for each of you to just choose one of these proposals that stood out to you and summarize it for the rest of us, what it's trying to do, and then make your comment, and then we'll open up the floor to comments by other people. So again, I'll start in alphabetical order. Yakov Berman, are you still with us? Mr. Berman? Okay, he's not with us. So, as Pat has said, we do need to be mindful of the time because not everybody can stay this late. We've lost someone. Okay, so who's next? I guess that would be me. Okay. So the proposal that I want to talk about, and I'm going to try and share screens so that you can see their they have a slide deck.
Suki, I have that open if
Okay.
you want me to share.
Yeah, I've got it up. I can share it now. Okay, so can everyone see that? Okay, so proposal 3 is expand opportunities for small scale clean production. And they haven't really given that many specifics about, we asked them if they could share a list of the businesses that would be, the manufacturing businesses that would be allowed in retail commercial districts. And they've only released a few examples so far, among them breweries, larger scale bakeries, 3D printing, jewelry making, things like that. This all sounds fine at first glance, right? I mean, you know, we don't want to stop Allen's Bakery from having a bigger operation because they're obviously very successful. We all loved craft breweries and so on. But you know, the devil, as was pointed out during these public hearings, again, and city planning is saying, we don't really need to regulate this on a zoning level because there are other city agencies that regulate environmental effects. You know, there's the EPA and everything. And so we can just leave it to them to regulate. My comment about this would be, first of all, I disagree with the overall approach that zoning plays no role in regulating public health and safety. I think it's one of the primary reasons that we have a zoning resolution is to separate different uses that might be incompatible into different zones. I think the purpose of zoning, rather than being kind of, you know, punishing someone when there's an infraction, is to help prevent some of these conflicts in the first place by separating uses that might be incompatible, like manufacturing and residential. Because retail commercial districts are permitted to be mixed with residential. For example, on Flatbush, on Nostrand, we have people living above the stores. We have large numbers of people living on these avenues. So we want to make sure that whatever commercial uses we have there are compatible with residential. So one, you know, thing that we find is that there are all kinds of things that we may not have thought about as being a problem with some of these city of yes things. And one thing that kind of popped into my view over the summer with respect to breweries and bakeries and other types of food manufacturing is there's something called black fungus that sometimes comes out of bakeries and breweries, and it can take over all kinds of surrounding businesses, surrounding vegetation. This has become a major issue in some parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, where entire towns have been engulfed by black mold from breweries that were located in town that you know, weren't using the proper environmental restrictions. So this is something that is, you know, very concerning. And, you know, is this on city planning's radar? You know, can we rely on the city's environmental protection to enforce these rules all the time? Because we know we have a lot of trouble getting enforcement, or, you know, enforcement only happens after something really bad happens and you have to make several calls. So this is kind of an example of, I think, where, you know, modifying some of these zoning rules is pretty dangerous because there are reasons why we have them. Does anybody else want to comment?
Suki, it is not almost 9:30, and I'm sure I can probably speak to several people in this meeting. To me, this issue, if you want to go through 17 text amendments and have
We're
a
not going to go
discussion,
through 17 text amendments, Alicia. We're going to take
it
as
should be
many
a-
as we can.
it should be a part of a subcommittee that has this discussion, because we're now 9:30. And the
We
public
don't have
has,
time.
I mean, this, I think this should be relegated to a subcommittee and let the subcommittee come and look at these things and have this further discussion. But to continue this discussion now means we're going to be here till 10 o'clock. If not
After
more. So I think, and
Okay, so
also,
I'm very open to the idea of a subcommittee. If we have a quorum at the committee level, we can vote on that and we can ask the chair.
well, you are the chair. You can sit there and say.
No, I mean, we can ask the board chair and bring it forward to the full board for a vote this general meeting. So can I get a
Somebody want to make some motion on the floor,
I
please?
will make a motion that we create a subcommittee, or that we ask the board to create a subcommittee.
I will second
to-
that.
Okay, can you flesh it out,
Yes.
Esteban, so that we have a proper motion?
Yes, the motion is that we create, or that the ULURP committee create a subcommittee to study the City of Yes for Economic Opportunity proposals, so that we can bring our findings back to the committee and then further to the community board for recommendations.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we are going to have to take attendance to see if we have a quorum. Yakov Berman. Yakov Berman. Okay, he's not here. Suki Chiang, present. Nicola Cox.
Present.
Present. Esteban Haron.
Present.
Present. Pat Moses. Pat Moses. We lost Pat. John Craver.
I'm present. I'm here.
Present. Okay. Tom Thomas. Tom emailed us beforehand to say he could not be present, so he's excused. Okay, so right now we have 4 committee members here. Myself, Mia, help me out if I've miscounted. Myself, Nicola, Esteban.
I'm also present.
And John.
John Wolfling. So we have 5 committee members present. There are 8 total on the committee. We do have a quorum. There's a motion on the floor. Does anyone, and it was seconded, right? So
I will
Esteban
second it.
put on the motion, John Wolfling seconded it. Okay. Can we take a vote?
You have to open it up for discussion.
Okay, so let's open it up for discussion then.
Can people from other committees be on this subcommittee or no?
Absolutely. And so we are, just to remind you guys, we are going to have to vote on the formation of the subcommittee at the general board. So the first time we're going to be able to meet as a public committee will be in October. And just also keep in mind that these subcommittee meetings are going to need to be public meetings that follow open meetings law.
And Suki, you may want to double check on who can be officially a part. Anyone can attend the meetings, but I thought we had an issue the last time where Fred said that only ULURP committee members could be on the subcommittee. That's why Alicia couldn't be on.
Well, that's why he took me off after I was put on.
I was
to
not.
double check.
Okay, I mean, I wasn't told anything of that sort. I was just told who the committee members were going to be.
I think according to the bylaws, anybody could be on it. I think we reviewed that, but we could review it again.
I mean, I definitely think that since this is City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, that if there are economic development committee members who want to be on the committee, that would be very appropriate, as well as our ULURP committee member people.
Why don't we research this topic, and when we put it to a vote to the general board, that's when we can inform everybody of what the structure of this subcommittee will be.
That's a good idea.
I'll also mention that when I actually made the motion the last time as well. And the motion specifically said that the committee would have folks from the community like Alicia, and was then told that wasn't the case. So it was actually in the original motion, but that was never addressed. So just, there's probably going to be a conversation about it. So just so folks are aware.
Okay, I mean, in any case, you all know that at my committee meetings, everybody is welcome, public as well as committee members, and we take the input of the public as seriously as anybody else's, even if you can't necessarily vote. Okay, so let's take a vote. Are we ready to vote? Right.
Yes.
So Suki Chung, I vote yes. Nicola Cox.
Yes.
Esteban Harron.
Yes.
John Wolfling.
Yes.
John Craver.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. So Mia, if you can make sure to let the executive committee know, and we'll put it on the agenda for the general board meeting to vote on this. So I look forward definitely to discussing this with the subcommittee members. And it's definitely going to be a commitment over the next few months. The timeline is pretty short. But definitely I hope we can get some good stuff done together.
Suki, can you circulate the URL for this PDF?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, I'll ask Mia to send it out after the meeting. And I think I'm not going to do this now because we're down 2 members, but then the next meeting, I'm going to need to appoint a vice chair in case I'm ever absent or late or whatever to run the meetings, and a secretary, which I know is always a popular position. Okay, so is there any other business that we haven't discussed? Anybody? There's some members of the public here who haven't spoken. We're here for you. So if there's anything that you need to, you want to raise. Okay, I can't for some reason see the hands at the moment. Mia, can you call on people?
Jay has his hand up.
I see Nicola and Jay.
Okay. Jay?
Sure, just 2 comments. The bylaws are online, so you could just Google bylaws and Brooklyn Community Board 9. You can see the bylaws. In section 8.3, it says that each committee shall be, it says appointed members may be appointed to committees at any time during the year or transferred from one committee to another by the board chairperson, the committee chairperson, and the member involved. So section 8.3 is the authority for a committee chairperson to do the to appoint whoever they want. So that resolves the issue with Ms. Boyd. Number 2 is, as far as the posting of different documents, I would ask that the community board post the records 24 hours in advance. So if there's a PDF or PowerPoint, if it could be posted for the general public 24 hours in advance. Governor Hochul signed a law last year on records. They're supposed to be posted 24 hours in advance. And that's the only other comment. And just to mention to John Wolfling, my comment was because I practice bankruptcy law. So Datner and Associates did the bankruptcy court in downtown Brooklyn, which is gorgeous in like a certain style. So I'm not sure if you were on it then. But John is also, okay, that's fine. But John's also a principal in Datner. He's not just a regular architect there. Thank you.
Nicola?
I wanted to clarify for those people, community residents that were on the meeting today and may not get the email from Mia, that the PDF that we were reviewing, the slides from the City of Yes, is on the City of Yes website. And the recording of both information sessions are already also on that website. So you go to City of Yes, you can Google it, go to economic development or economic opportunity, and you can see the PowerPoint slides as well as the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Nicola. And for those who are community, who are board members, the notice of the information session was sent out by Dante well in advance. So please, when he sends these things out, this is why. Alicia?
I just wanted to address something that Cheryl was concerned about as far as what action she should be taking. I think that the best thing that you can do, Cheryl, is to come to the general board meeting next Tuesday, not this Tuesday coming up, not tomorrow, but the following Tuesday, and bring your supporters and demand that something be done to the chairperson. I think that coming here, you're going to get something, but you would be better off with going to the general board and letting the entire community be aware of your dissatisfaction about what's happening, and also push for more representation on the land use committee, because it's very clear that Suki is not going to put anybody on. That is, Fred is holding that power, and Fred is the chairperson of CB9, and it would be at the general board that you would make that demand. This is how we have been successful in getting some of our demands met, but I do suggest that that's something that you do. Gather as many people as you possibly can, come to the community board, sign up for the public comment period, make sure you sign up, and then talk about the fact that you do not have enough representation on the land use committee, and you're demanding that Fred Baptiste place people on the ULURP committee that's more representative of the people and the locations inside the CB9.
That's how a lot of us ended up on this committee 9 years ago. So it's like, and also to speak with Alicia, because the community board can be very opaque, and just government in general can be very opaque, but you can get a lot done outside of the context of that. And there's a lot of us here that have done this work and that have pushed and pushed and pushed. So don't get discouraged by the specifics of what each committee does or anything like that. Like, the community's here, and we're here for each other. So we can do stuff that the board can't necessarily do. So yeah.
Thank you.
And
I just want to emphasize that it absolutely does make a difference for you to come to the board and speak. Like Esteban says, it's pretty much how all of us ended up on the board. We came to the board as residents. We spoke out about issues that were affecting our community. I was placed as a resident committee member by the chairs of the boards at that time. So that's kind of been the procedure in the past. But if that's something that needs to be discussed about what the actual rules are, I'm sure it will be.
Thank you. And that's Tuesday the 26th?
Yes. And please Cheryl, please look for me. You see what I look like. So please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I'll look for John too.
Which one? The developer or the architect?
Mr. Craver that doesn't believe parking is essential.
Okay, anybody else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes. I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All right, thank you. So it's 9:38 and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mia.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Mia.
Everyone.
Bye.
Yeah. Good night, guys.